military industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
My prepper brothers and sisters, you've arrived at the bunker. Grab a cup of joe, a stout tea, or maybe your favorite adult beverage. This is the prepper's place for open discussion on whatever the hell we want. Brought to you whatever the hell way we want. This is the new format of Top's Bunker. So sit down, kick back, post up, relax, and welcome to the bunker.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Military industrial complex.
And we as a people will get to the promised land.
We will make America strong again, proud again, safe again. We will make America great again.
Preppers, survivalists, off-gridders, homesteaders, and the like. Welcome to Top's Bunker, a podcast for preppers. Leave a voicemail to get on the show, speakpipe.com/tops, or use a live message option on our Facebook group, Top's Bunker. Email us at shtf@topsbunker.com. Visit our site, topsbunker.com. I want to thank y'all for joining us. We got a great show for you tonight. Jeremy and I are doing a bit of bunker talk. That is, we're going to shoot the shit, so to speak, and see where the conversation takes us. Kind of a shop talk style episode, bringing in some current events and current opinions, current interests and happenings from around the world. Yes, we're taking a break from talking about prepping and survival for this one episode. Because let's face it, y'all have other interests, right? You do, right? Besides rice and beans and bugging out. Damn, I hope so. All right, then, here we go. Which is something that I have been following for about a decade, maybe even 2 decades now, maybe about 15 years, following what is supposed to have been under the pyramids. People have been talking about different things, and there's all kinds of ancient writings and all this stuff about a deposit of secrets and of the origins
that
of man.
Blue pool of bodies, like a blue water with bodies in it.
I don't know. Yeah, well, no. Now there is. I've seen the pictures and the people that have gone down, and there is tunnels under the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, and there is a lake down there, and there are pictures of it with sort of boxes and stuff in it that we knew about, and that's kind of some of the things that sparked a lot of the stuff. But the Egyptians and their government is not allowing anybody to do any kind of excavation or any kind of research under the pyramid. Well, there's a group of scientists out of Scotland and Italy that have recently made a discovery using a sort of a different type of a radar system that's from aerial or from space, and use a couple of other different things and compile it into some sort of a program. And what they think they found is 5 more chambers that are exactly like the King's Chamber, under the ground, like way under the ground, like 1,000 feet or so. And then they also they believe that they found what suggests to be vertical shafts going down into the ground with spiraling vertical shafts around those, upwards of 2,100 feet down underneath the ground. And we're talking about 7 football fields.
Mm-hmm.
That is very significant. The controversy, though, is that they didn't submit this for peer review, which you're supposed to do in science in order to get, anything written. They just went directly to the press with it. And that's the problem with Egypt and a lot of these archaeologists, is that every single time somebody tries to go against the norm of what, ancient Egypt and our ancient people are about, they get shot down every single time. There are so many things out there that archaeology cannot explain. They just can't explain it.
Yeah.
And every time somebody finds something, they just knock it down. And so I don't blame them for not going through the usual channels, but it's just strange.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I saw a video just recently talking about this, and you see the pillars and what almost looks like, and I can't tell if it's copper or gold or whatever it is that they've got wrapped around those pillars. It has a metallic look to it, and they're going down and they're doing all these different things and showing the blue. They've got lights, and it looks like a large blue gem of some kind, and all this different stuff. But then they start talking about I don't
know what that video is. I've seen that video too.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. That's something new to me.
I don't know if it's real. I don't know what it is. But then they started talking about, and this particular guy, he does a lot with conspiracies. Everybody knows I love a good conspiracy. But he started talking about predictive programming, and where, of course, they always call them the elites in the world governments and all these different things. And how over these past couple of decades, they just let little tiny tidbits out here and there and pieces and parts. And people are like, ooh, that's pretty cool. Ooh, that's pretty cool. So when things significant happen, it's already like in their mind that it's not a huge shock to them. They're like, oh my God, kind of like with Kennedy. Everybody's always had this suspicion about who actually did it. Now we know. And they're like, okay, cool. We already knew. And I think that's kind of what's happening right now. I would like to know, they're like, there's no way humans could build this. There's no way slaves, even like for generations, could have done this. And the same thing with a lot of the castles and stuff around the world and the basilicas and these different churches. They're like, there's no way human hands could have done this, because why in the world would somebody who wants to leave a legacy start a project that would literally take 500 plus years? That's like their great-grandchildren's great-great-grandchildren would never see the end of it. So why would they actually start that process? It doesn't make any sense. So, because there's a lot of people who believe in the aliens, that, aliens or angels or someone had something to do, or either in a good way or a nefarious way to do with a lot of these massive, structures that just mathematically don't make any sense for the tools that they had at the time. Like the pyramids, they all orient, I can't remember towards what, but they all orient towards a certain point in the sky. They even the pyramids that they've found down in South America and Mexico, they all are oriented a certain way. The stones are so tight and so set, you can't even get a piece of paper through them. They've taken micrometers and tried to figure out, where the mistakes are, and they can't find any other than the age of the stones. Like, the stones are starting to break, time takes its toll, but they have absolutely no answers as to how these structures got built. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can say is people lived a lot longer back then. They were probably in a lot better shape than we are. I have no answers for it,
They've calculated out that, in order to have built the Great Pyramid, a Great Pyramid, but let's call it the Great Pyramid, which is the center one. In order to have built that, there had to have been a stone laid every 16 seconds.
Whoosh.
Something to that effect. You could talk about ancient aliens. You could talk about all these different things. For me, I believe that there were civilizations prior to the ones that are in written account. Like some of the things that bother me were like the Great Pyramids. These are tombs. These are supposedly tombs, right? For a pharaoh. Okay. Mm-hmm. Every single tomb that has ever been built in Egypt, every single one of them, the walls and ceilings are covered in hieroglyphs. They're covered in paintings. There are stories told on every single wall, every single tunnel. everything, explaining exactly who is to be buried there, what's going to happen to them, their afterlife, their journey to the afterlife, all of the possessions that were brought in there and why they're brought in there, food items, all that kind of stuff. The Great Pyramids have nothing.
Yeah.
They have not one single word anywhere written on the inside of these tombs.
Yeah.
Not one single word.
And they still have no accounting as to how or why before, major, I guess, if you want to call it Western, scientists found a lot of these tombs. Most of them were looted already.
Sure. Yeah.
They're convinced that the top of the Great Pyramid, I believe, was capped in gold.
Right.
Nobody has any accounting as to what happened with that, or how the face of the Sphinx was damaged. They don't have any accounting as to a whole bunch of these things. So I don't know. I mean, if we ever found out the actual, the truth.
That's the problem, man.
The real truth.
People say that the truth is actually in chambers inside the pyramid where they won't let anybody get to. They won't let anybody explore to it.
Yeah.
And it's just really, really strange. And you said the Sphinx. The Sphinx was, the great statue that's that's out in front of the pyramids.
Hmm.
And once that was, the hole in which that was put into was cut out of the ground. And that rock has been deteriorated by erosion, by water erosion.
Mm-hmm.
Which on that type of stone takes a very specific amount of time to have happen. And it could not have happened in the time frame that they're saying that those structures were built. It just can't.
Yeah.
So imagine now, so this sounds complicated. Imagine you want to build a pool in your backyard. So you dig a hole in the ground, in solid rock, you dig a hole, and then you just leave. Let's say you don't build the pool. There it is. And it gets filled in, whatever. And then somebody comes in and uncover it thousands of years later, and they say this was built in 2025. But the rock that it was cut out of has been eroded by water that takes tens of thousands of years to happen.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? Well, the scientists won't explain it. Geologists, they won't explain it. Archaeologists, they won't explain it. Nobody will explain how that happened. It's just, you got to be able to fill in the blanks. And just because it goes against what you have been pushing your whole career, you shouldn't be allowed to pull the wool over the eyes of human beings. This is our history, not your history. It's everybody's history. Those pyramids don't belong to Egypt. They belong to everybody.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
And I could just imagine, like this group of scientists finding all these new and different things. And then some old dude is turning and he was like, oh shit, they found it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's right.
It's almost like, oh my gosh, I thought we weren't going to do this one. And then all of a sudden they're doing it. Yeah. Yeah. But see, here's another great thing. And this kind of goes into what we're going to talk about today is nowadays, everybody's a reporter. Everybody's got a phone, and anybody who has a phone that has the ability to record anything nowadays is a reporter. This is how we're getting real life, no kidding information as soon as it's happening. And then the community who's been trying to keep that thing, hidden for X amount of time is jumping out of their sack trying to be like, oh my God, they found it. No, now we got to come up with another story.
Yeah. And the only way that they're going to be allowed to, that this is going to be allowed to be put to bed is to actually get down there and do an excavation, go down into those tunnels and figure it out. There's claiming that there is a massive city down there, that there is lots of information that has to do with human beings. And I think that we should be allowed to, know it. We should be allowed to know those things. Now, the Egyptians say that this is, these are their pyramids and this is their history. No, it's not. It's not their history. This is thousands and thousands and thousands of years before the Egyptians were Egyptians.
Yeah. And
before we were who we were, if everybody came from one sort of area, one sort of melting pot on this earth, it's all of our history.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I was about to say, depending on how, not to get religious with it, but depending on how you believe, if you believe in creationism, and that we all came from Adam and Eve, when you're going to the Bible, in very few instances within the Bible do they actually talk about like a specific period of time. You know, there's some instances where, yes, they do say, you know, it was this amount of time or this amount of time. But, you know, even for instance, if you go to Genesis and he talks about the creation of the world within, you know, God's 7 days, back then, who knows how many days? If mankind cannot grasp a concept of a exponential amount of time, and they have to shrink it down to their logical thinking of days, they have no idea how long it took. And if you believe in, you know, the Big Bang Theory, that, you know, something happened and in the universe, and then there was this expansion, and we're all came from, you know, a microorganism or whatever, that still doesn't explain like a hard time frame, because carbon dating's been proven not to be super duper accurate. It's an estimation. I mean, seriously, it's really just an estimation.
It's an estimation, yeah, but you can still tell if something is 10,000 years or 1,000,000 years or 50 years.
Yeah.
You can't, you might not be able to tell that it's 51 and a half years, but you can get a fairly good time frame on something.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be curious to know. There's a lot of speculative theory out there on all of that stuff. I think for me, it's more of a curious, you know, kind of thing right now. And like, say for instance, you know, you got the heads in Easter Islands, right? Of the I can't remember what they call them, but the statues of the guys with the long heads, right?
Molokai or something like that.
They just recently realized just how big those things are. There's a bottom to them. It's not just a head.
They go more into the ground than they are above ground.
Yeah. The dude's got an ass, and it's like way down there. They did not realize that it's not just a couple of, you know, some dude didn't get high, go out there and, you know, carve up a bunch of heads. Their whole bodies. And they're just recently finding this out. And the stuff that they found in Egypt there, they did it with ground penetrating radar from satellites. Excuse me. And I've used ground penetrating radar before, but in a different way. It was actually a machine that you put on the ground. But they used ground penetrating radar, which they've had for a considerable amount of time. This is not new technology. This is, I would say, new-ish, 25, maybe so years. So how long has this information actually been out there, but it's just now being discussed? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to hear of these academic types out there saying, no, we have already written history and we're not going to change it. I think that's crazy. I think you have to rewrite history constantly. Science is constantly rewriting scientific stuff. You know, the Earth, they say 4.5 billion years old. Okay. And that's a rough estimate. Let's just call it that. But time is not something that we humans can actually understand.
Yeah.
They have found evidence on Earth of the oldest known evidence of modern man that can actually create things with their hand and tools and things like that, going back almost 1 million years. It's like 980 something thousand years. Okay, that's 1 million years. That's a long time. Now you think about this and you say, okay, but what about the dinosaurs? Well, the dinosaurs lived on Earth for 165 million years. The dinosaurs lived on Earth. Well, think about this for a second. This is a mind-blowing thing when you start thinking about time. We are closer in time to Tyrannosaurus Rex, who lived in the latest part of the dinosaur's life, than T-Rex lived to its own ancestors 165 million years before that.
Right.
Think about that for a second. You say the time of the dinosaurs. The time of the dinosaurs was so freaking vast, 165 million years, as opposed to our little almost 1 million years.
Yeah. And
that T-Rex lived so far away removed in time from his ancestors that we're actually closer in time to T-Rex than T-Rex is to his ancestors.
Yeah.
Time is crazy.
And they're finding new species all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They just recently found another one. It almost looks like what their depiction, and again, I my personal opinion is that, you know, they find the bones, and let's just say you found a complete skeleton. We still don't know what the hell they look like, you know, but their depiction of a velociraptor. They found one recently that looks a lot like it, but it was actually an herbivore. And they say it used its, you know, claws on its hands to, you know, cut, you know, vegetation and whatnot. But the only reason they're saying that it was an herbivore is because its teeth were squared off versus, you know, being pointy like a predator.
Isn't that funny? It's funny how they do that.
It is. What if it was just an old frickin' dinosaur that was like on its third set of dentures? You know, like, I mean, I mean, you know, like the largest ones, like the Brontosaurus or the what is it called? Oh, it's kind of like a Brontosaurus, but all of those, you know, super, you know, gigantic, million-ton, you know, beasts. You know, they've got a depiction of them based off of what they have found pieced together. Because some of the dinosaurs that they have found, they're literally a bunch of them all died at once in the same spot. So it's right. You've got this conglomeration of bones that they just kind of took a wild stab at, you know, which I can appreciate, you know. Because you get in there and you start looking around, you're like, oh my God, what are all these bones? And you start looking and you can be like, well, that looks kind of like our femur, so I can put this here, and that looks like a vertebra, and they keep going and going and going. Mm-hmm. But how do they know a freaking Brontosaurus wasn't smacking on, like, you know, some veggie and a random dinosaur every once in a while? If they're as big as they say they are, then, I mean, we're talking... The largest predators of that era would still have had a hell of a time taking down a Brontosaurus, if that's the actual, you know, the actual case. I've seen the depiction of how big a T-Rex would be next to an Allosaur, you know, and all these different, you know, right, things. But still,
have you ever seen a lion try and take down an elephant?
Oh, dude. You want to know what one of the biggest killers of lions are in Africa? Besides humans? It's actually giraffes. Giraffes, buffalo, and zebras are one of the three biggest killers of lions.
How's that?
So you get some lions who are just hungry enough or brave enough or stupid enough. A couple of them will be like, you know what, we're going to take down this giraffe. I get it that it's 23 feet tall, but we're going to do this, right? So they will get up onto a giraffe's back, a full-size adult giraffe, whose legs are like, they're incredibly long and they're extremely powerful. So, and the reason they have to be so powerful is they've got to keep that stupid 40-foot neck up in the air. So a lion has been killed more times by getting kicked by another animal that they're trying to kill than most anything at all.
I've seen videos of those giraffes kicking the lions, and they fling them like 25, 30 feet with just their legs.
And water buffalo and wildebeest, they will gut open a lion in a quick hurry with those horns. Tigers, however, they have a resonance in their growl and in their roar that actually will paralyze human beings and prey, basically with fear. And it's a frequency that, when detected by sensitive ears, or once you start to hear it and you understand what that sound is, you become paralyzed with fear. It's crazy to contemplate that an animal.
They call it infrasound, is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it can mess with your brain and your body.
Yeah, and this is why I love open mic night.
Yeah, well, I mean, bunker talk. We'll call it bunker talk, open mic night. We'll call it all kinds of stuff. But I don't know. I want to know what's going on with this, and I'm going to keep. Like I said, I've been following this whole under the pyramid thing for about 15 years now. It started a long time ago.
Yeah,
and, it's coming around where the buzz is on right now. You know, could it be one of these things where the buzz is on right now to try and take your take people's minds away from other stuff. Whoa, did I just go down the rabbit hole? I mean,
you did.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? There are things like that out there where they bring other stuff up to get your eyes off of other things.
That is possible. And that's damn effective, because I can tell you it's now,
effective.
There's a whole bunch of people watching it.
Yeah.
And I'm actually looking at pictures of it right now. And, they're showing these images. You got the pyramids, and the way that these pillars, they almost, for lack of a better term, they look like springs or spirals. You can see they're always depicting it in blue, but it looks like springs to me. If you were looking at an elongated spring before it's compressed, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah. So what they're trying to say what their interpretation is that there's a massive circular tubular shaft that goes straight down. Now there's a lot of them. There's a bunch of them. And then around those are tubular tunnels that I guess you could walk down, or water could move through, or who knows. But like I said, you're not going to know until you get down there and do an excavation. They're never going to allow that, man. It's never going to happen.
Or up. What if it was to draw water up and out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like an aqueduct.
Yeah. But hundreds and hundreds of feet.
I know.
I mean, below the water table. It's just weird, man.
Well, I mean, you got to think of it this way. That whole area, at one point in time was covered with water, right?
Yeah.
The whole of the earth at one point in time was covered in water. And at one point in time, the whole of the earth was covered in ice. So if the ice came before the water, what's to say that what we are seeing as the open desert at one point in time was not actually much, much, much lower? And what we see as open desert is what is remaining of the sediment of the water that was there before. Because they have found, like, if you go out into certain parts of the ocean, you can go out to certain part in the ocean, which you would think is this tumultuous, constantly flowing thing. But they have found underground moving streams within the ocean. And you can go into caverns in certain parts of the ocean and around the world, and they actually have streams that are not saline water. They're fresh water, and they are trapped within, like, underneath the actual ocean.
That's crazy talk.
It is.
It's crazy.
It is. I mean, and, we talk about us evolving. You want to talk about us. Let me tell you something. Animals are like wazoo creatures, even in the simplest of things. So take, for instance, every year, you see like Alaska, and they got the salmon, and they're making the salmon run. Where do you think those salmon came from? They came from the ocean. They desalinated themselves, moving into fresh water back to the point in which they were born. And then the cycle begins again, and those new salmon go from fresh water out to salt water. They live their life, and then they come back. And just recently, down in, was it Florida? Was it Florida? Where I can't remember where it was. They just found a 10-foot mako in fresh water, like swimming in a river.
Oh yeah. Then now that does happen. They do find sharks that are supposed to be in the ocean in fresh water.
Yeah. But to take an animal that was born into salt water and has to have salt water to survive, and has somehow made its way along a series of tributaries and rivers into fresh water, and is thriving and eating and doing just fine, that is insane to me. That's crazy. So, I mean,
there are things on this planet that I think are way older than our history allows. And there's a place called Göbekli Tepe. It's a hard one to say. Göbekli Tepe, and I believe it's in Iraq or someplace over in that area. That supposedly, at this point in time, archaeologists are saying is the oldest known structures ever built on Earth. But they are so amazing. And they have drawings on them and all this other stuff, and people are calling it like they're saying it's the Garden of Eden. It's where humans first started from, and there are pictures and descriptions of animals on these walls that are beautifully ornate that aren't even from that area. They're from other places around the world. So all these questions are popping up about it. And it's not just a little site, it's a gigantic site. And only about 20% of it's been uncovered by the sand. And here's the part that bothers me. A massive, huge conglomerate has bought the entire area and is now covering it up. You can go online and you can see the actual pictures. They're putting paved areas over things. They're putting whole entire sections of trees that are being planted right over the top of other parts of these where you should be digging. They're planting trees.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Why are they doing that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense.
Well, you talk about
they're hiding something.
Oh, of course. I think a lot of this, we call it, it's called Pangea, of course. And you look at what we right now, how our Earth sits and how it just kind of happens to be where it looks like certain parts are supposed to fit with other parts. And maybe that part got broken and, drifted. And like, for instance, you see this part, you were talking about this place and how they have pictures of animals that, aren't regional to that place.
Right.
Well, that also people can't explain, well, why are there these kinds of elephants that look slightly different over in Asia, but these type of elephants down here in Africa are so different? Or this particular tiger over here looks different than this particular tiger over here. Well, the same thing goes with us. One of the things that a lot of the Native American tribes look for when you're doing your DNA testing and you're looking for tribal membership is they actually test for Asiatic markers. The reason being is if you go way back and you look at the land bridge between where Russia is and where Alaska is, there was a land bridge and it was not covered by water. So when you look at the people of, say, Mongolia, and then you look at the Inuits in Alaska, genetically, there's no difference. They're the same people. They are the same people. Well, they didn't always stay there. They kept going south, so they kept going south.
They were migratory people.
Yeah. So now you have the Inuits in, Alaska, and you start keeping going down, go through Canada, and they started to look a little bit different because it's not as bright. And then you keep going down and then you have like Seattle or, Washington and all those different areas, and they start to look a little bit different. Well, eventually they met some folks that came up from South America who are just as much classified as Native Americans as
that's right.
Everybody else. So you take, say, for instance, somebody from South Texas, right? They are 100% convinced that the only nationality they have is they know that they're Mexican American or that their parents came from wherever. Do some DNA. They're going to find out just how much Native American and European influence they happen to have in their blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty significant because the further you go south into Mexico, the more European influence there is. If you are up, say, by Juarez, there is you can look at the people. You can look at them and be like, that's not what I would have thought of a person from Mexico would look like. If you took what an artist rendition of what an Inca or a Maya should have looked like, and then you look at some of the people in Juarez, you cannot tell the difference. They are those people. But then you keep going a little bit further up and then into the like into Texas. Then they start to look a little bit more like what the Cheyenne people look like and the Apache. And then if you keep going, you run into the Hopi, and there's all these different looks and all these different ways that they appear. And then, you go over towards Florida and you have the Blackfeet and you have the Seminole. And say, for instance, if you were to find an artist rendition of the Taino Indians in Puerto Rico, what they look like, they're the same damn people. They're the same people, the same bloodline that you would find in now the Tainos no longer exist. They were bred out and murdered by the Spaniards, but the bloodline still exists. And
there was the Bog people where they found some burial sites that were under the swamps in Florida or someplace like that. And they tie them directly to South America, but they're over in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. And now if you were to go to like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and say the Dominican Republic and a lot of the different islands in that area, do a DNA test against the people who are actual tribal membership of the Blackfeet and the Seminole in Florida, probably super duper close in DNA markers, like really, really close.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is. It's absolutely crazy. But then, you want to talk about history that they've tried to hide for generations. They have found actual Vikings in the United States that predate Columbus's arrival.
They're definitely trying to hide that. For sure. Yeah. And yeah. I've done some research on that as well, and they're definitely trying to hide it.
Yeah, they have found them actually, you were just talking about bogs. They have found them where they, their actual remains in some of the bogs down all the way down in Florida, Georgia, all the way up into the Northeast and into Canada. There is hard evidence that there were European men and women with red hair and blonde hair who landed here. Some were taken in by the Native American tribes, but a lot of them were, of course, killed off, super fast. But they have found burial sites where they had villages and they were thriving. And it doesn't line up with anything that anyone believes, because they believe Amerigo Vespucci, was one of the first ones here. Well, I'm sorry, but he was not. There were actual Vikings that made it here.
They won't rewrite the history books, man.
No,
they won't do it. And that bothers me.
Yeah. But they probably made it here accidentally. They probably drifted, and, you land in a country like this and you have to imagine what it was like. What was our country like? The wildlife, the amount of vegetation that we had, how plentiful everything was. That dirt.
Well, sure. The Vikings came from a place similar to that, and they started branching out and going to places like England, and doing conquering there, and then they made their way over to Iceland and Greenland, where Germany. It was very hard and rocky and cold. And then they started making it down into Canada or Nova Scotia. And why wouldn't they have come to the United States? And when they did get to Nova Scotia and Canada and the United States, they found this beautiful, lush land where they can hunt and grow and survive and build buildings. Why wouldn't they have stayed?
Yeah. I mean,
they're not going to go back to Greenland or Iceland. That's not going to happen.
No. And like my own family history, after my grandmother passed on my mom's side, my mom's first cousin did a genealogy thing going back, to when they first got here. So on her side, on my grandmother's side, they were Scotch Irish. They came here as indentured servants, aka slaves to the English, in the mid 1600s.
Oh, but wait a minute. Were they white?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So why are you calling white people slaves, man?
Oh my God,
black people were slaves. We're not going to get into that tonight. Okay.
Oh, we can definitely get into that, because I'm willing to. I have upset friends. I have friends. I'm not kidding you, who are probably, if I had to, guess, this is just, and I love them to death, but some of them really do truly believe that slavery is a newer thing, and it originated here. They really do truly think that. And
the ancient world was built on the backs of slaves, all colors of slaves.
Here's the stupidest thing. So it was when I can't remember how many years ago. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. Those special members of Congress decided to wear those scarves and take a knee inside the halls of Congress, right? And they all had the colorful scarves, and they were like, "This is we're showing solidarity towards the African American community, the African community." The scarves that they were wearing were part of a tribe in Africa that did and currently has slaves.
Man, you think they could have done a little research first?
They could have done a little bit of research. And slavery has been the norm in many, many cultures based off of conquest. It even happened here. A lot of Native American tribes would clash. The winner would go into those tribes, and they would take a lot of those people, and they would make them slaves. And eventually, and a lot of them, not always, but a lot of them would actually incorporate them into their tribe.
Right. They became part of the tribe. Yeah.
Yeah. and you get rid of one generation slowly, So if you incorporate a person who we're calling a slave and they're like, hey, you're pretty cool, dude, we're going to make you part of the tribe. And then that person has another child with a tribal member. And then generation 2 happens. And then generation 3. Well, guess what you've done? You have erased a tribe or a group of people through history. You have actually erased the memory of that happening through slavery. And it's the craziest thing to say, but it's been happening for thousands of years. There's a reason why Puerto Ricans look the way that they look. You never know what color you're going to get. I have family in
It's
Puerto
funny because a
Rico.
lot of people think Russians are like, big honking strong white people or whatever. They're in Asia. Russia is Asia. Russia is considered an Asian part of the world. And the majority of the people who live in Russia are Asian.
Yeah, you go up towards Siberia, and you're like, "Whoa, there's Eskimos speaking Russian up here."
There's Indians.
They're like this. There's
I don't think you're allowed to say Indians or Eskimos. I think it's wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway because I'm old, and that's just the way I roll. I mean, I don't agree with slavery, so that's why I'm allowed to say shit like that.
Yeah, and it's like I have family in Puerto Rico. They go from looking like a white cloud to the 11:59 midnight. Like they are that dark to that light. Some of them have blue eyes. Some of them have green eyes. I have family in New York. When I introduced my youngest daughter to them, she looked around and she's like, who am I related to here? And I looked and I was like, you see those 4 over there? You're not related to them. And she started looking around and like, what in the hell? I thought I was just Puerto Rican. And I'm like, you'd have no idea what Puerto Rican means, do you? I mean, because
is Garcia Puerto Rican? I thought
Garcia comes from Spain. So when the Spaniards arrived in Puerto Rico, what's called Puerto Rico now, and they encountered the Taínos, well, like how I say, they were either killed off through disease or breeding, or killed, intentionally. They were a vicious, tribe that lived on an island, and they were defending their home. But here comes the Spaniards. But the Spaniards brought the slave trade from Africa with them, and that is why
they brought the boots on the ground, man.
That is why Puerto Ricans today are so many different colors, so many different shades, and Puerto Rican Spanish is different than Mexican Spanish,
right? And different from Spain Spanish.
Yeah, and this particular, Spanish from this part of Mexico is different from this particular part of Mexico. It all changes through history. And if you had to take Puerto Rican Spanish got a lot of slang in it. I'm not going to lie, but it's actually easier for some of us to understand Italians and actual European Spaniards than it is to understand somebody from like, say, Juarez in Mexico or Panama or Nicaragua. There's a lot of similarities, but the dialect has changed through slang. So slang comes from terms where, like, say, for instance, we have a lot of, we use soliloquies and different, ways of expressing something because we didn't know what it meant. So we came up with a word, and then that person said it, and they were like, oh, that's what that's called? So I'm going to keep saying it. And generationally, a slang word becomes the norm. So that's where a lot of the differences in dialect come from. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. When I met my ex-wife, we were talking, she was speaking Spanish, and she asked me something, and I had to determine whether or not she was asking me if I wanted potatoes or if I wanted to eat her father. So it's all about the use of a term and how it's expressed. So like the word papa, right? Papa can be used for potato or father. And it depends on if you're using it as an action verb or how you're using it, but it can be misinterpreted the way that you say it. So
I thought papas were appetizers. From what I understand.
So we actually found a restaurant, and their appetite, it was called Mamas and Tapas. Instead of Mamas and Papas, it was Mamas and Tapas. Tapas is, they're like small appetizers. That's what you're talking about.
Tapas, not papas.
Tapas, yeah.
Tapas, okay. See, I'm not Spanish, so I don't know. I don't know these things.
Yeah. We found it. We were like, oh, cool. I see the twist on it. Mhm.
Mom was in the top. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, one day, when and if, let's say, all of humanity has finally mixed and melted down into one sort of smearing color of people, what will we fight about then? You know, smartness, intelligence. I mean, what will we fight about? Who's going to go to Mars? Who's not going to go to Mars?
I don't know. I mean, what is humans? What is it that we have to fight about other than people who desire power? I mean, I've put a lot of thought to this. And like, for instance, what divides our country? You know, a lot of people are like race. Why is race an issue? If we call ourselves, you know, they say, well, this race and this race. No, horseshit. There's one race. It's the human race. The only difference in any of us biologically, besides being male or female, XXXY, is the amount of melanin that is produced in our body, which determines our skin tone, our shade. It determines how our hair grows. It determines the color of our hair or how fast we go gray. All of these different things. There are literally genetically no difference between any of us other than just like that code. Like, how much melanin does it take to produce this particular color? Like, you take me, for instance, I'm mixed. There are certain parts of me that are darker than others naturally because of being in the sun or whatnot. But I look, depending on the type of day or where I've been or what I've been doing, you can't tell if I look Native American or if I look Spanish or if I look white. Because sometimes I look like all three. And if I get real dark, people are like, I've actually been asked if I'm adopted. Because I look like normally an average white dude with a gray beard, but I have a last name of Garcia. So they're like, I don't understand. Well, what does that even mean? Well, that's because you're retarded and you've never seen other Puerto Ricans. You know, it makes me so angry when I hear people. They're like, oh, well, it's a culture thing. What culture? Where did your culture come from? Let's go backwards in time. You know, like my youngest daughter, I showed her my DNA. And if you were to calculate all the different totals, I think it's like 9 or 10% of my DNA comes from Africa. That's because when the Spaniards went through Africa with slave trade, before they arrived in Puerto Rico, and we're talking way long ago, they picked up slaves in different parts of Africa and brought them with them. And those DNA markers stuck within the Taino people, and that generationally and generationally and generationally and generationally, she was trying to wrap her mind around that. And she's like, well, why does it say that this is Scotland or Ireland or England? And I was like, well, that's from grandma. Not from not from grandpa's side. That's from grandma's side. So, I mean, I've even got Portuguese in my DNA. Why? Like, how the hell does that happen?
Right.
Well, come to find out, the Portuguese got their ass whipped by the Spaniards. And guess who ended up coming along with them on those trips? The Portuguese. That's how Portuguese became spoken language of a lot of different places. And the Portuguese at one time were a very, very powerful country. Very powerful. They were conquering, you know, civilizations just like the Spaniards did.
Yeah, they got beautiful castles and great stuff.
Yeah. But, you know, you go to, let's see, who speaks Portuguese in South America? The Brazilians.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's the whole city that speaks Portuguese.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. Weird.
If you think about South America and all these different places south of the border, you're like, wait a minute, why do these cats speak Portuguese? Why? You know, it does. And you go to Africa, you know, you've got whole countries that speak their native dialect plus French plus Portuguese. They can do all three and English.
So way smarter than me.
Oh, dude. I've met kids when I was deployed in different countries that are speaking like 5 and 6 languages and look at us like we're retarded. Like, because we can.
Well, I imagine Europe is like that too, since the countries are so closer together.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And in a lot of places, they have to speak different languages because a lot of them are so close together. Like when we were in Europe, we visited Liechtenstein. So Liechtenstein is the tiniest country in the world, but it has the highest GDP. And it literally sits smack in between.
I thought Liechtenstein was a city in Germany.
It's a Castle Liechtenstein, which is the inspiration for the Disney castle. But they do have a Castle Liechtenstein, but there's also a country of Liechtenstein.
No shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we stayed there. It's right in between the Swiss Alps and Germany, and it is freaking gorgeous. And it is so amazing. But, they're having to speak German, and they also have to speak, what did the Swiss speak? Swiss, whatever that is. They speak what they speak. They speak English. But in Liechtenstein in particular, they have to speak multiple languages because some of the wealthiest people in the world store their money and their stuff there. I mean, they are freaking rich. It is insane. And the country itself is so clean. It makes some of our places it makes our trailer parks here in North Carolina look super bad.
They enforce laws for cleanliness.
Oh my gosh, dude. But hell, I mean, Missy still talks about the subways in Korea to this day. You can damn near eat off the floor in some of them. They were so clean. But you go to New York and you don't want to touch a pole. You're like, oh God, there's DNA on that thing. Ugh. Ugh. Yeah, man. God, the world is so weird. And all I want to do is just sometimes just get the F away from
I want them to rewrite the history books. I really want to know. A lot of people do. And I want this stuff to be, when things are found, I want everybody to know about them. I want it to be spoken out loud, screamed from the rooftops kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't want them to go, no, that didn't happen. You're interpreting it wrong.
I think that some of this stuff should be celebrated. Like this discovery in Egypt. I think it should be celebrated. They're like, yeah, okay, cool. It rewrites history. And so now we have to learn new things. I think some of the stuff that they have, there's been people who've been trying to prove the Atlanteans existed for, who knows how long. And when you hear about what the fictional quote unquote description of what Atlantis looked like, well, they have found that. And it matches that description. And
you're talking about the in Africa.
Is it in Africa?
No, oh yeah. It's the I've gone down this rabbit hole for a long time now. Yeah, Atlantis has been found. Period. End of discussion. We already know where it's at.
So I think what the theory is that there was a city, and it was referred to as the Atlanteans, and you have to think about geologically the Earth now as we know it versus the Earth then, rocked by however many earthquakes and, tsunamis and however many things. But basically the city was washed away through some kind of natural disaster. I think that's what the theory is, but they have found a structure that matches.
You're talking about the Younger Dryas. The Younger Dryas was the time it was 11,500 years ago. It was a time when they had a massive flood happened on Earth, and the eye of the Sahara is the natural geological structure that is in Africa. You can see it if you go on the African map and look up the satellite version. You can see the land. Yeah. You can zoom in. You can see it looks like a gigantic, massive circular thing that has rings, eccentric circles. Looks just like how Atlantis was said to have been. It is right smack dab up against the Atlas Mountains. Atlas Mountains, Atlantis. Anybody catching to here? It's exactly the same distance that it was said to have been away from it. And if you look at the whole landmass of Africa in that region, you can visually see with your own eyes that a massive flood came across those mountains, went right across the It's called the reshot structure. It's RICHAT, the reshot structure. It's also known as the Eye of the Sahara. You can see where the water has come right across there and went all the way out to the ocean. And I'm not talking about a river here, guys. I'm talking about something that is thousands of miles, a flood that's thousands of miles wide.
Yeah. Yeah. And
a biblical kind of a flood.
Yeah.
Right. And in that same area, there are salt deposits all over that area of the desert. How does salt get there? Because of the ocean water, the flood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking of biblical floods, there are plenty of scientists out there who continue to debate how they have found the chariots, the bones of humans and horses, the spears, the arrows, and all of that match the time era of the Pharaoh when he was chasing after Moses and Moses parted the Red Sea. They have found evidence of all of those things at the bottom of the Red Sea. Hundreds and hundreds of horses and humans and chariots. And they found it and they were like, why is this particular wagon wheel or chariot wheel coated in gold spokes? Well, that particular Pharaoh coated his spokes on his chariots in gold. And they, all of the evidence points to the fact that that happened. So if you look at it from a biblical standpoint, if you believe in that, Moses parted the Red Sea and they walked across and they were in a hurry because there were people chasing after them. And as soon as they got across, the Red Sea collapsed. Pharaoh was left on the banks, but most of his army perished underneath the waves of the Red Sea. Well, it just so happens that they actually found that, It also just so happens that they found that the area where this was found is actually a sort of almost like a land bridge that's higher than the rest of the ocean, and the low tide or the high tide or whatever it was allowing people to actually walk across this marshy area, run away across this marshy, wet area, and by the time the soldiers got there, the water had already come. It was receded, but it already had come back in. And when they got out there, they got stuck in the water. The water basically just ate them up. Yeah.
I don't believe it was a massive wall that was spread wide open and people ran through it like in the movies. And then they came to the chariots and the walls closed in on them and sucked them up. No, I think that they made it across on foot when the water was lower in that area. And you can see it geologically that the land is higher there. Mm-hmm. And then when the soldiers came through, they came through with all their heavy equipment, all their other stuff. They got stuck in it and they perished.
Mm-hmm.
They all got stuck in the mud and drowned.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at a picture of one of the chariots with the horses still attached to it that they excavated, or they brought up. They actually sent down these, I don't know, it looks like a crane that's a big square. And they would grab up a whole section, bring it up, and then start excavating through it. And this chariot still has the horses attached to it, and the human inside of the chariot still has a spear in his hand.
That's crazy.
That's is
very, very wild.
It is. That's like nuts to me.
They just sunk down into quicksand type of a substance, and the ocean swallowed them up. Hand of God. Yep.
Yeah, and I know that
now you can debate whether that's the hand of God or whether that's geological and this and that. But you know what? Why can't it all be the hand of God?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know people who have told me directly, they're like, show me scientific evidence. Well, you know what, man? You don't have to have scientific evidence to have faith. That's why it's called faith. You got to believe in something, because if you don't stand for nothing or for anything, you're going to fall for everything. I mean, you have to stand for something. So, I mean, it's people will die on the hill of it has to be scientifically proven to them. That's fine. That's cool. I get it. I like faith because, you know what? You don't have to prove to me certain things. Now, what I would like to know about is what happened to the people that were related to the giant that David killed. That's what I want to know.
The giants are out there too, man. We can do a whole nother episode on it as well, but it doesn't really fit into the whole prepper survivalist thing. So it has to be on like a bunker talk, type of open mic thing.
Yeah.
But, the giants are another great story that I just love.
I mean, I know some big dudes, but
No, we're talking giants here.
Yeah.
the Nephilim, what do they call them?
The children of the fallen angels.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. That's deep.
Yes, sir. So what in the prepper survivalist world were you wanting to talk about that we no longer have time to talk about tonight?
On our next episode, we are going to cover current threats that are in the world right now, specifically to us here in the United States. And I know there's a lot of people in a lot of places that listen, but the current threats that we have here at home, what that means to us as people who were prepared.
We're going to talk about that on the next episode.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well.
I mean, Buddy couldn't make it because of the big storms coming through his area, and he lost all of his internet and all that. And I think he had like a whole area study going on and all that sort of thing. So he really wanted to talk about it.
Now watch, he's going to send us a picture from like Burger King or something.
Yeah. He's like, oh, pass me by. We're good.
Yeah, I got some Taco Bell. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Don't say Taco Bell. I'm hungry.
Oh, dude, I had Taco Bell last night. I don't know why I do it to myself. I tell myself never again, and then I start thinking about it, and I'm like, damn, dude, that taco sounds good.
Taco Bell is an hour and a half round trip for me.
Jim,
I can't do an hour and a half round trip for some tacos. It won't last the half a mile back. The food.
No,
it'll be eaten.
That's too much of a trip for prison meat, man. That is
exactly.
You know, I miss Taco Bell in like the late 80s, early 90s, early to mid 90s. You could be poor as shit and still get a bunch of food at Taco Bell.
Oh yeah.
Dude,
absolutely.
It was awesome. And you knew it was prison meat. You knew it was, but because it was so cheap, you lived in denial. I mean, I can remember when I first joined the Army in like 94, 95, 96 timeframe, I really struggled because we didn't really make money. So you made your money, you had a couple bills to pay, and by like mid-month, like you were going through the couch in your barracks room, scrounging for change. If you gave me $10 back then, I could get probably a half a tank or more of gas in my car. I could get a couple of packs of GPC cigarettes and probably a case of Mickey's Wide Mouth Brew. That's how much we struggled with
when
money.
you're in the military.
Yeah.
Couldn't you just go down and get free food? I mean, aren't you allowed to eat for free when you're in the military?
Yes, we do have barracks, or we have chow halls, you know, that barracks soldiers eat in. But, you know,
nasty.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's nasty because I have friends who are cooks and they do put pride, but I will say that not every chow hall in the Army is the same.
It's the same. Okay.
No, it definitely is not. Some of the chow halls at Fort Campbell, when I was first stationed there, the best thing that they have all day is breakfast. It's hard to screw up breakfast.
It really is.
It really is. And that's usually the one thing the Army got right. And lunch and dinner, it really depends.
Eggs, bacon, biscuits, and gravy.
Yeah, and French toast. French toast, Army French toast is always like legit. But there was always those nights when you went and you were like, man, I ain't got no money. I'm just going to go to the chow hall. And you went down there and for some reason you saw steak and you saw lobster. You knew.
What?
Yeah, we call it surf and turf. But you knew for a fact that if you saw that, you were getting screwed over. You were about to get deployed or you were absolutely asinine thing. And then the next morning they'd be like, hey, the battalion commander's got some stuff to say. And I'm like, oh God.
It was your last meal, huh?
We're going to get ammo. We're going somewhere.
Damn.
Yeah, man. Surf and turf night was always like the best and the worst because you knew you were getting screwed over.
My prepper brothers and sisters, take a break from prepping every now and again. It'll be good for you. Trust me, too much of any one thing is never a good idea. I want to encourage you all to let us know what topics you'd like us to talk about on the show, and also to extend an invitation to all of you to join us on the show as co-host for the night. Talk about your prepping and survival interests. We'd love to have you on. Look, there's nothing scary about it. You'll be nervous for the first few minutes, just like all of us were the first time. It's gonna happen. That's just natural. But then you'll quickly realize that it's just a conversation between friends. That's it. It's super easy. Which reminds me, next week we have Joe from Florida coming on as a guest host to talk with us about his strategic relocation from New York to Florida, as well as other things like current events, sprinkled in with a little bit of politics and some of the things that he's interested in. Guys, please reach out to us on the Tops Bunker Facebook group so we can talk about it, okay? Stay prepped, stay happy. Thanks for listening, and good night.